Kiba Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Aroti Ke Sobha Janavi Tatavani Jagamanalobha Janavi Tatavani Jagamanalobha Jaki Nitai Chan Bhamega Dadara Jaki Nitai Chan Bhamega Dadara Nitat ke advaitasini Vasa Chatradhara Nitat ke advaitasini Vasa Chatradhara Vase Ate Gaurachan Ratna Simasanen Vase Ate Gaurachan Ratna Simasanen Aroti Korenga Brahma Adi Devaganen Aroti Korenga Brahma Adi Devaganen Narahari Adi Kori Chamala Dulaya Narahari Adi Kori Chamala Dulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Basu Gosadigaya Sanjaya Mukunda Basu Gosadigaya Sanka Baji Ganta Baji Baji Karatala Sanka baje ganta baje baji karatala Madhura mridanga baje Paramarasala Madhura mridanga baje Paramarasala Sanka baje ganta baje Madhur 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 baje Sanka baje ganta baje Madhur 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 baje Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Haribol. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Haribol. Bahu koti chandra jine vadana ujwala Bahu koti chandra jine vadana ujwala Gala de sebana mala kori jalamala Gala de sebana mala kori jalamala Shiva Sukha Narada Preme Gada Gada Shiva Sukha Narada Preme Gada Gada Bhakti Vinoda dekhe Gaurara Sampada Bhakti Vinoda dekhe Gaurara Sampada Kiba Jaya Jaya Gauran Chande Arati Ke Sobha Chanavi Tatavani Jagamana Lobha Gaurange Aroti Soba Jaga Jana Manaloba Gaurange Aroti Soba Jaga Jana Manaloba Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Haribol. Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Haribol. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastatari Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda Radhe. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pairajikacharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pairajikacharya Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki. Anantikoti Vaishnavinda ki. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki. Prem se karo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki. Maipur Vrindavan Dham ki. Nilachala Jagannath Puri Dham ki. Tusi Devi Bhakti Devi ki, Ganga Devi Yamuna Devi ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, all glory assembled devotees, all glory assembled devotees, all glory assembled devotees, all glory Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. You want to sing, Mother?
Yeah. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada halada daine. Pralada halada daine. Hiranyakashi Purvaksha Shilatam Kanakalaye Ito Nashimbo Parato Nashimbo Yato yato yamitai to Nashimgo Bahir Nashimgo Hridaya Nashimgo Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadya Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipur Tanu Bringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Pralat Maharaj Jayo Pralat Maharaj Pralat Maharaj Jayo Pralat Maharaj Jayo Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Shri Narasimha Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadari Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's okay. You can do it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to this evening's Bhagavad Gita class. Today we're reading from chapter 4, text 4 of the Gita. Do you have it on your phones or? Yeah, okay, so we can go through the Sanskrit, one line at a time. Arjuna Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vishashvata Katame Tadvikyaniyam Tvamadau Proktavanyati. Would one of you like to try? Go through the Sanskrit. Arjuna Uvacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivashata tammitad vijaniyam tvamado proktavaniti. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivashvataha katam metad vijaniyam tvam ado proktavaniti. Arjuna uvacha param bhavato janma param janma vivashvata katam etad vijaniyam tvam ado proktavaniti. So word by word. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna said, Param, junior, bhavataha, your, janma, birth, param, superior, janma, birth, vivashvataha, of the sun god, katam, how, etat, this, vijnaniyam, shall I understand, tvam, you, ado, in the beginning, proktavan, instructed, iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivashvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? And purport by Prabhupada. Arjuna is an accepted devotee of the Lord, so how could he not believe Krishna's words? The fact is that Arjuna is not inquiring for himself, but for those who do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or for the demons who do not like the idea that Krishna should be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For them, only Arjuna inquires on this point. For them only, Arjuna inquires on this point, as if he were himself not aware of the Personality of Godhead or Krishna. As it will be evident from the 10th chapter, Arjuna knew perfectly well that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fountainhead of everything and the last word in transcendence. Of course, Krishna also appeared as the son of Devaki on this earth. How Krishna remained the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, the eternal original person, is very difficult for an ordinary man to understand. Therefore, to clarify this point, Arjuna put this question before Krishna so that he himself could speak authoritatively. That Krishna is the supreme authority is accepted by the whole world, not only at present but from time immemorial, and the demons alone reject him. Anyway, since Krishna is the authority accepted by all, Arjuna put this question before him in order that Krishna would describe himself without being depicted by the demons, who always try to distort him in a way understandable to the demons and their followers. It is necessary that everyone, for his own interest, know the science of Krishna. Therefore, when Krishna himself speaks about himself, it is auspicious for all the worlds. To the demons, such explanations by Krishna himself may appear to be strange, because the demon always study Krishna from their own standpoint. But those who are devotees heartily welcome the statements of Krishna when they are spoken by Krishna himself. The devotees will always worship such authoritative statements of Krishna because they are always eager to know more and more about him. The atheists who consider Krishna an ordinary man may in this way come to know Krishna as superhuman, that he is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, that he is transcendental, and that he is above the dominion of the modes of material nature and above the influence of time and space. A devotee of Krishna, like Arjuna, is undoubtedly above the misunderstanding of the transcendental position of Krishna. Arjuna's putting this question before the Lord is simply an attempt by the devotee to defy the atheistic attitude of persons who consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being, subject to the modes of material nature. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarunvyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nivirshesha Shunyavadi Pastyachade Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna, requesting all of your blessings so that we can discuss together some of Prabhupada's words and come to a better understanding, especially Srinivas Ruru, please. So, just to put this into context, this is chapter 4. In the previous verse, Krishna told Arjuna that I spoke this knowledge to Vivashvan, the sun god, but over time this knowledge is... Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so Krishna just told Arjuna, I've spoken this knowledge to the sun god, but this knowledge was lost over time. And so now Arjuna is asking Krishna, but if you spoke to the sun god and now you're speaking to me, but you were only born a few years ago, so how can it be that you're also were speaking to the sun god millions and billions of years ago? How is that possible? So Arjuna is asking this question, and as Prabhupada says in the purport, it's not that Arjuna doubts Krishna is God, but he's speaking it for our benefit so we can understand better. So we know that Vivashvan spoke to Manu, his son, who's and then Manu spoke that to Ikshvaku, who was a king on this earth. This was 2.5 billion years ago. This was spoken, and since then knowledge was lost. And then Krishna had to come to re-establish this and re-speak it to Arjuna. And this really shows the power of time, the power that time has to annihilate everything. Krishna says that time I am the destroyer of worlds in the Gita. And even something perfect coming from God can be worn away in the material world with the effect of time. So Prabhupada was very careful that things weren't changed. He had a very strong emphasis on this, that please don't change what I've given you or alterate any of the process, because he understood this power of time to erode things. And we can see, you can look at everything. Anything started in the material world with the influence of time, it erodes, it wears away. There's nothing that can be maintained in the material world. So this Prabhupada kept emphasizing this again and again with the culture that he set, the knowledge he gave in the books. And because if we change something according to... Often change comes because we want to fit in with the modern times. But if we change something given by Krishna to fit in with the modern times, but then in the future the modern times will change again and everyone's consciousness will shift again, so then we'll have to change again and again. And like that, that's how things get lost. if we try and fit in. So of course, secondary things can be adjusted to help people's understanding, but the primary principles always should remain the same. Prabhupada is very strong on that. And we can see that this disciplic succession is actually a very delicate thing. It can be easily broken according to time and the erosion of time. And so it's very special that we actually can be part of a disciplic succession. An unbroken disciplic succession is a very rare thing, that we actually have a line and we are able to be part of that, and an unbroken line coming from Krishna. So so it's very special, and it also leaves us with a great responsibility as well, because we've received this knowledge, and it's our responsibility to uphold that line that we've somehow come in contact with. So we should meditate on trying to become proper representatives of the Guru Parampara, our disciplic succession, and we can meditate on Prabhupada and the Acharyas. We can meditate on all of our actions. Is what I'm doing right now going to be pleasing for Prabhupada? Is this going to be pleasing for the Acharyas? Am I representing Prabhupada in the right way? Am I representing our line? And that should be a constant meditation for us. And if we don't feel that, then we're in some ways not showing sufficient gratitude for what we've received, if we're not properly carrying ourselves. And so it seems like a very simple process. Actually, we've been told you just repeat the words of the Acharyas, you repeat the words, and then you're safe. Right? Prabhupada said, just repeat what I've said to you, and your preaching will be successful. And so it almost seems too simple to be true, right? We just have to repeat, and we become purified. We become good preachers. But it is very simple, but it's so much against our nature as human beings. Or as conditioned souls, we have the tendency to think that my opinion is valuable, that my opinion is important, and I should share that with others. So to actually put aside your own opinion and just to repeat something takes a lot of humility. Actually, it takes a lot of. You have to really work against your nature, as thinking that what I have to say is of use. It's of value, and so it takes some real humility to actually put aside our own ideas, our own opinions on things, and just repeat the words of the spiritual masters. And then we allow the knowledge to flow through us, and that's when we become proper representatives, because if we're not trying to change something, we can see for ourselves that we're not, or at least I can see for myself, I'm not a pure devotee. When I just observe my mind and all the things that go through it, it's quite clear that I'm far from purity. But we can be a pure representative when we are just, even in an impure state, when we simply repeat the words, then we're becoming a via medium. And then we can actually really have an effect on others if we're simply repeating the words. Because Prabhupada always gives the example of a postman. The postman might have some letters in his bag that contain checks with millions of pounds in, and he's taking them and he's delivering through the doors. So Prabhupada said that the postman himself, he doesn't have a penny. He's not rich at all, but he's carrying these letters with millions of pounds in checks and delivering them. And so Prabhupada would often give this example. In the same way, we can be just like postmen, and we can deliver people millions of pounds, even though we ourselves might have just a few pennies in the bank. So we're trained, from childhood we're trained, in school they say, okay, we want to train the new generation to be leaders, to be great, to have big ideas, to make big changes in the world, to create solutions, to make people happy, but we understand that it's only Krishna's ideas and Krishna's plans that will make people happy. So it's, like I said, it's really going against our whole training as the youth of the modern society. it really goes against our training to just simply take something and deliver it to people. And this disciplic succession, like we said, it gets lost over time. And we see this even recently. After Krishna spoke the Gita, then it was lost. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came only 500 years ago to re-establish again. And then after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the world, then again it was lost. And then only 450 years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this process, then practically the whole philosophy was lost. And then Bhaktivedanta Thakur re-established the teachings and the Siddhanta, the proper Siddhanta of Krishna consciousness, and then he passed it on to his son Bhaktisiddhanta, and finally Prabhupada. So just to re-establish that point, that it's very delicate, and it can very easily be lost, this knowledge. So it's really a great responsibility for us to kind of try to understand this and take this and also deliver it to others without adulteration. And just to emphasize the importance of parampara, even Krishna himself accepts a spiritual master, right? So he's the Lord himself, but when he came as Krishna, he accepted Sandipani Muni as his spiritual master. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also himself accepted a spiritual master. He accepted Ishwara Puri as his spiritual master. So the Lord himself is setting the example of how important it is to take a spiritual master and be part of this parampara, this disciplic succession. But Krishna says in the Gita, actually, it's rare that someone manages to develop this sufficient humility to accept Krishna in truth. There's this one verse in Gita that says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So Krishna is saying here that it's quite rare that someone is willing to accept this truth and as it is. And often we lack humility when we're studying, when we're reading books, or when we're hearing Krishna's words. Sometimes we come to something and we read it, and it doesn't sit with us. We can't, for some reason or other, because of our conditioning, we can't accept it. And so when we come to that point, if we're not humble enough, then we'll just read it and we'll get emotional about it, and then we'll stop reading and say, okay, I can't accept this, I'm not going to read any further. But if actually we're humble, when we come to something that we can't understand or we don't agree with, then we say, okay, because of my conditioning right now, because of the situation that, I can't access this point at the moment, but I'm not going to stop reading the whole scripture because one thing doesn't sit with me at the moment. So then you carry on. That's humility when we're reading. And this brings us to the point that Prabhupada makes in the purport, that people can't accept it. He says that demons, they can't accept when God speaks about himself. Because Prabhupada says, because they're too absorbed in their own viewpoint. And they're absorbed because they're envious of Krishna. Ultimately, they can't accept. They think that, why is Krishna speaking about himself? He's just proud. Right? Why would someone just glorify themselves? But because they're envious of Krishna, they reject it because they have also a desire, because they want to be in that position. They want to have that glory, talk about themselves. So this is really the main point that I kind of drew out of this purport from Prabhupada, was that this envy towards God or envy towards others really prevents us from accepting these statements, prevents us from gaining a deep understanding of Krishna consciousness. And it's one of the biggest obstacles in spiritual life. And we can see it's so rampant in the material world. Everyone is envious of another because no one is satisfied with where they're at. No one is content with what they have. Very, very few people are. They want to, okay, this person has a better job, better house. I need more of that. I need more security. I need more of this. So we all kind of experience that enviousness in some way or another. And there's one story that's told from the Shastras in regard to this, about a man who he meets a saint, and the saint says to him, let me try to remember this. He says, I'll give you whatever you want. He said, I'll give you anything you ask will become fulfilled. But your neighbor, the person who lives next to you, he'll get double of whatever. You probably have heard this one before. So he'll get double of whatever you get. And so man said, that's great, no problem. You give me whatever I want, that's perfect. So next day he came to him and he said, okay, my house is quite small, I've got lots of children, I could do with a bigger house and more ground. And so he said, no problem. And then next day his house manifested, he got a huge house. And then he comes back again the next day and says, well, I could do with some more money and things. And so the saint said, yeah, no problem. And then he looked at his next door neighbor, and his next door neighbor had got this huge mansion and these grounds double the size of him. And he thought, okay, no problem, but I would like that more as well. So the next day he went back to the saint again and he asked for something more. He said, this time I want, and I forget what exactly the things, but he kept asking each day for something more. And he would get more every day, and then he would see that his neighbor has double the amount. And each day it was getting a little bit more, and within him he was getting a little bit more envious and like, why is he getting... So then one day he was really getting frustrated, and he went back to this saint and he said, please take away one of my eyes. And the saint said, okay. So he took away one of his eyes, and then when the man saw his neighbor, he saw that he had no eyes and he was blind. So this is the nature of envy in the material world. And in Bhagavatam it says that the path described in the Bhagavatam is entirely, this is in verse 2 of the first canto, first chapter. The path described in the Bhagavatam is entirely devoid of any dishonest purpose. It is held in adoration by those who are free from the flaw of envy. And we hear that in the spiritual world there is no envy. Envy is the one characteristic that is not there. Everything else is there. So we understand that everything's like in the Gita, it's described the perverted banyan tree. So everything that's here in the material world is experienced in its pure form in the spiritual world. Apart from envy. Envy is not present in the spiritual world at all. There's no manifestation of that in the spiritual world. And so they all appreciate and love each other, centered around Krishna in the spiritual world. And it's interesting, I heard in a class the other day how the residents of the spiritual world love each other. Not how they love Krishna, but how they have love between as friends or between each other. And it was described that they love someone else in relation to how much that person loves Krishna and how much they serve Krishna. So they're seeing someone else and they're seeing how much love you have for Krishna, and then their love is saying, wow, I love this person so much because he does so much wonderful service for Krishna. And so the residents of Vrindavan are giving us tips on how to become free from envy, is that we should appreciate others' service to Krishna as a main way of overcoming envy. We appreciate someone else's service to Krishna. And I was meditating on how else to become non-envious. And this can only really occur when we're happy and when we're content and we in ourselves, when we're happy with who we are. And when you're happy with yourself, then you've no reason to want anything that someone else has, which is what envy is. And which means we need to cultivate deeper spiritual absorption. Because only through spiritual absorption can we understand and feel more content in ourselves. Which means we have to read Prabhupada's books, because when we understand more about ourselves and who we are, and we have to chant attentively, because that also reveals much more about who we are. Gokishore actually said that, Gokishore Das Babaji actually said once that just by meditating on the sound of the holy name, your Sarup, your original identity in the spiritual world, will be revealed. So it's such an exciting opportunity available to us of self-discovery. We can find out who we actually are and overcome this enviousness by taking this practice kind of deeply. So we can rid ourselves from this envy, which leads to so much dissatisfaction and horrible behavior to others from our own. And also the same path will make us happy as well. It's not just a difficult path of self-discovery. It's also a blissful process. Kevala Nandakanda. And so we can measure our non-envious, like Prabhupada says in the purport. He says the devotee is always happy to hear Krishna's words. So we can also measure our own non-enviousness when we look at how much taste we have for hearing about Krishna and hearing the glories of others, of the Krishna's devotees. So if you're hearing someone being glorified and you're just happy about it, but you're not feeling any kind of envy there, then you can know you're making progress. So that was kind of a few points I drew out of this on non-envious. I pray that I can develop a few of these qualities after speaking about them. And is there any questions or comments from this verse? Yeah, you can, or I can repeat, but maybe in a mic is easier. It's the cordless one.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Is that working?
Okay, go.
Thank you very much for your class.
Thank you.
Really, really nice. Especially the point how we can't, just the ability of repeating what we've already heard takes so much humility, and just the false ego will so naturally just try and get in the way of the truth. My question is, of course, Prabhupada's books contain everything we need to know, but at the same time, they don't contain all the information necessary for the material world. You have to sort of apply that information.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if someone presents to you a moral problem, such as technology develops, there's more and more ethical issues we have to deal with. How do we sort of get to a position where we utilize Prabhupada's knowledge that he's given us without putting ourselves between the knowledge and the answer?
Very nice question. So how do we take these points that Prabhupada has given and present it purely to others, but also apply it to the modern context with so many different challenges that weren't even considered in the time of writing? Yeah, this is a good point, and it comes up again and again, how to be relevant in modern context, how to bring this knowledge into relevance. And I think the way I've heard it explained is that we really should be trying to be taking the principles of what is being given, and applying the principles, and then it takes our own intelligence, and that's where we can use intelligence to apply that and give that to others. But we take the principles of the essence of the knowledge, and use our own intelligence to apply that to people in time, place, and circumstances. And we see that Prabhupada and all the acharyas, they did this expertly, right? So they would take this knowledge in a pure, unadulterated form, but then they would apply it according to who they were speaking to, according to the time, place, and circumstance. So Prabhupada did this so much, he had to really, to change everything coming from India to the West. It's genius how he managed to give the essence of these teachings without changing anything, but at the same time he was able to put it in a way that they could understand. And imagine this, like coming from in this culture where you've had this in your family heritage or in a Brahmin family, and this culture is just passed down to you, and then you come into the West and it's like no one's even heard of what a Brahmin is, no one has heard of Krishna, no one believes in God even, no one takes a bath more than once every 2 weeks, they take drugs. Imagine trying to, it's just amazing actually to see the ability. So that's what Prabhupada managed to do. He managed to take the essence, the principles, and really apply it to them. So in the same way we have to try and see, but we should never, those primary things should never change. Like Prabhupada never changed the prime chanting Hare Krishna, all the primary things. So it's up to us to also, like we were saying, read and go deep ourselves to really discover what these primary things are, and then we can give those to others in a digestible way. Yes, David. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the class.
Thank you.
So I wonder how do we, what's keeping us still having faith in consciousness? What's the anchor?
So you're saying, your question is that if there is some statements that that we don't really understand, we might never get clarification on them, and it can sometimes shake our faith a little bit. So what is what keeps us faithful to these teachings and to Prabhupada? Yeah, that's a good question. I think obviously Prabhupada would always say what was that phrase? The tasting is in the eat. Also, you know the phrase. The tasting is in the eating, or the proof is the food, right? So some things is just down to experience, and the experience we get from Krishna consciousness, it should give us a lot of faith when we take it seriously, when we chant Hare Krishna. Then everyone experiences, they get some experience. Hare Krishna gives a glimpse, and so some things come down to experience. And then the deeper we go, then the more faith we develop, and these things become revealed. There's this famous verse, Yasya deve para bhakti yatha deve tatha guru tasyeta katityartha prakashante mahatmanaha. That for one who has implicit faith in Krishna and the spiritual master, the purports of the scriptures are revealed from within their hearts. So it's kind of a whole circle. The more we practice, the more we get faith, the more we have experiences, the more we understand, and then it keeps going deeper and deeper in like this loop. So that's just some thoughts. Srinivas, you had some thoughts? Yeah, please. Yeah, you can. Shall I read it? Okay, nice. Look at that, Srinivas always has the answer in his books. Okay, let me see. Oh, it's not long. That's good. 4 types of faith. So this is from Srila Shivaram Swami. We are all no doubt aware that some people adhere to a type of faith by which they kill in the name of God. They destroy others' properties, take lives, and even ultimately commit suicide, justifying it all with their religious beliefs. It is not religious bigotry or intolerance to observe or state these things. It is simply a fact that this type of faith in God exists. The Bhagavad Gita explains that there are actually 4 types of faith. The purest form of faith is the first type, spiritual faith. Spiritual faith means we have faith in God because we want to please Him, and that desire becomes the motivating force for our worship. The second is faith in goodness, that we desire to be pious, to be recognized as a good person, and that we are to ourselves and others considered godly and respectable. The third is faith in passion, that we worship God because He is going to provide something for us, like a cure for a disease or a bigger car, a better house, or that our children will pass their exams. It is something of a mercantile arrangement that we worship God or act piously with the surety of return. The fourth is faith in ignorance. That is faith without knowledge, without any understanding of the universal purpose of all religions or the real meaning of Scripture, whatever language or form those take. We are unfortunately all too familiar with ignorant faith, which is envious, destructive, and sectarian. But ignorance can be eradicated by knowledge. Religion is not all about externals, how we all look different, or that our language is different, or what our traditions differ. Faith is about what lies within. Very nice. Thank you. Here you go. Okay, if there's no other points or comments, we can conclude there. Thank you everyone for attending. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna.
Sam, that was good. Hey, anything happening on Sunday with you? No. Huh? We were like, just doing a session or something. Yeah,
Manor system is 1 year.
huh?
Is there? He seems like living as far as I know that.
I wrote to get initiated. We were thinking of you.
Yeah, we were like,
John might put the support you to sit on the side, just give him the initiation. My brother's getting it.
We know which one,
Vin.
Young one.
the one in Leicester.
They're both from Leicester.
The one I know, the one we used
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
he's getting initiated.
And his wife.
The other one is not ready yet.
And he's a long way. Used to be.
I would love to be.
Oh, if I was anything to do with it, I would be like, oh,
I'm waiting for you. She's should be. I don't know.
yeah, you have to, like, they can't maybe have different rules for different
Yeah. Anyway, by some.
summer.
Oh, you can go there and get initiated on Ashby.
That would be about that 1 year.
Yeah. No, that'd be nice. It would be nice. Because of God actually does initiations. And
If it's open.
if you're aspiring, then you can take the initiation commitment to your mentor. Who's your mentor? Initiated, isn't it? Mine as a kid on that actually, that was wonderful.
Have you been to Viva to them?
But
You can,
as soon
with
as-
ashram people.
No, that is because the whole lockdown happened. So the plan is as soon as things open up.
I can go and come back.
They'll probably make him sign something.
No,
You
no, no,
have
no,
to
no.
come back.
So many devotees. Right? Come on, Krishna Maharaj, he went there.
No, we were all like, my girls have grown
He
up
came
very
here.
there.
The Mashmi festival. It was just himself. I showed him around. Are you competing?
for him because he's by himself. I'm just gonna go in that shop.
I wish you all the best. I'm looking forward to hoping you get in shape. My brother up because he's getting. Huh? No, I think I have no problem. March, each temple has a system. I think my brother is because of Western temple, they're recommending him. If he was here, he'd never get recommended.
So your brother will go with Sam for initiation to Hungary, yeah?
No, he's getting it on Sunday. Sunday morning, yeah.
Even you, Sam? Oh, I see.
There's about 30 people getting initiated Sunday.
Your brother will be waiting a long time, maybe that's why, right?
Oh, yeah, a long time. March said I've been waiting for you for a long time.
Yeah, so Sam is just recently.
Sam's an old school. He had an old body, now he took a new body and it came back and he's been around a few lifetimes, you know. How you doing, Lois? Yeah? Soon be open up.
Yes. That's good. In Hungary, yeah?